Hey guys, welcome to part 3 of structure. In this video, I'll be showing you all how to intertwine the different time frames using structure. Okay, so I'll be illustrating structure with a diagram before we get onto the actual charts. Okay, so let's look at structure overall now. Let's say here we have the weekly time frame. Okay, so you can see that the weekly time frame is bullish. And how do we know this? Well, we know this because of its higher highs and higher lows. Okay, let's use the highlighter tool to mark out the structure. So a higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and higher high. Okay, so what we're going to do is take this segment right here, right? So we're going to take this segment right here and break it down on the daily time frame. So now on the daily time frame, I'm going to start from when the weekly makes the higher high. All right? So the weekly makes that higher high. And now to make that higher low on the weekly, price actually turns bearish on the daily and it breaks structure to the downside, printing higher lows and lower lows and lower highs, right? Going all the way down towards that weekly higher low, right? And that's something you guys have to understand, that in order for price to create that higher low, right? So in order for price to create that higher low and stay bullish on the weekly time frame, the lower time frame will have to break structure and basically go bearish short term and counter trend to that higher time frame to then continue overall in the intended direction. And this is why understanding structure is important. Okay, now to understand it better, I'll mark out the weekly high and low on the daily time frame. Okay, so this is the weekly high and this is the weekly low. Okay, so all we know is that price over here is bearish, right? And the general rule is we should be following the higher time frame direction. So in this case, because the higher time frame is bullish, does that mean we have to wait weeks to finally trade alongside the higher time frame? Okay, so this is when knowing where the higher time frame is most likely to go is crucial. And using the lower time frames, you can be confidently trading towards that higher time frame area, which in this case is selling towards that weekly higher low. Okay, so now let's look at this area on the 4-hour time frame. Okay, so on the 4-hour, I'm going to start from right here, right? I'm going to start from this low right here and then create that lower high on the daily time frame. Okay, so this high is this high over here, and then price has a break of structure to the downside, pulls back, right? Starts creating lower lows and lower highs. And then let's say this low right here is this low over here on the daily and the weekly, right? That higher time frame on the weekly, the higher low on the weekly, which is also the low on the daily, right? Would look like this on the 4-hour, okay? And then to create that BOS, the upside, right? Higher highs, higher lows, higher highs, and that break of structure on the daily time frame to the upside is done right here. And then that little pullback, right? And then which is right here, this low, and then that other break of structure to the upside to create the higher high. Right? So the 4-hour is basically doing exactly what the weekly is doing, right? And what the daily is doing, but with more structure, right? So let's start marking out the weekly high, the weekly low on the 4-hour, which is right here. And to actually better show this, let me show the structure on the daily. Okay, so this is the lower low. Let me change the color actually. 1 second. So right here, let's make this, I don't know, let's make this yellow. Okay, actually, let's make this violet or some shit. Okay. All right, so price creates that lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high to create that weekly higher low, and then break structure, creating the higher high, then the higher low, and then the higher high. Right, so if I mark this right here, the daily structure on the 4-hour, it will basically look like this. Right, so this is the lower low, the lower high, right? So this is this right here. This low right here is basically this low over here on the daily. Okay, and then create that lower high, and then the lower low, which is also the weekly lower low. I mean higher low. Okay, and then price has that BOS to the upside on the daily, which is shown on the 4-hour, which is the high over here, and then this pullback, and then another higher high, right? So this higher low over here on the daily, and then higher high, right? So you have to understand that the weekly time frame, I mean, the 4-hour time frame is doing exactly what the weekly is telling you, right? So over here, when price moved down, the daily had to break structure and continue going lower, right? To create that higher low on the weekly, which on the 4-hour, if you look at this section, right, looks like this, right? So all these time frames intertwine together, and you have to take the higher time frame, go down to the lower time frame each time. So you start with, what you do is you start with the higher time frame, and then you kind of look at the time frame lower than that, right? So if you start off with the weekly, you look at the daily, then the 4-hour, then the 1-hour, going all the way down to the time frame that you enter from, right? So you have to intertwine all these time frames together to build that narrative or that direction in the market. All right. So same principle goes for the 1-hour, right? Because price is fractal. So it doesn't matter if you're on the 15-minute, the 5-minute, or the 1-minute. They all intertwine together following the higher time frame direction. Okay, so I know we didn't get to on the actual charts right now, but I'll do that in the next video so you all don't end up getting too overwhelmed, right? So as I mentioned before, for people that are new to smart money, too much information at once will actually get you overwhelmed. So I'm going to be making, well, these videos in parts so you guys can watch it in parts and take notes as you go and learn. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video.